You're listening to 5 Minutes of English with Laura Pickens, a short podcast about the way we actually talk, like for real. You was mistaken. Hi, my name's Laura. I'm an American living in Russia, and I work as a speech coach. I help Russian speakers speak English better. I have worked with clients of all ages and all levels. A common mistake I have found amongst even my more advanced clients is making a mistake by saying you was or we was. This is not just a beginner phenomenon. I see this in clients who can put together complex sentences, who feel fluent and comfortable in speaking English, and yet they make this fundamental mistake. The question is, why? So in today's episode, I want to explore this with you, because if you are a Russian speaking English and you find yourself making this mistake, I want you to understand what's happening, because it doesn't make sense. Why are we making this fundamental mistake? You don't see this problem in other parts of grammar. I dug into some research on this problem, and I have found that part of the problem is how easy English is. Russian is complicated when it comes to conjugating or changing the verb to match the subject. We do have this in English, but only as an exception, because most of the time we don't really change our verbs. When you are constructing a sentence, you are focusing on perhaps maybe the verb tense. This is an alarm flag that says that you need to pay attention and that you might make a mistake. You're worried about complex constructions, about when to use ing versus the to version of the verb. But generally, sentence construction jumps over the ending on a verb because you generally don't need to think about it. Was becomes the place marker of just past simple. The next question I have is, why doesn't it sound bad to your ears when you say it? If you are at higher levels of English, for example, if you can understand me now, you have heard lots and lots of English, proper English. So why is it you don't automatically feel weird when you say we was? The research says that when we fall into these patterns, they become almost impossible to break because they're not as terrible to our ears as you think they might be. A native speaker absolutely would hear something that is off, but this doesn't happen with non-native speakers. And a major reason of why this happens is because it doesn't get in the way of communication. If you say we was or you were, your listener is going to understand exactly what you mean. It's not going to be recorded as a mistake because there was successful communication. It's all these factors that lead to advanced speakers of English still making fundamental mistakes like saying you was or we was. For some people, this is not acceptable because it sounds like you don't understand the basics of English. So how do you fix it? We need to make it sound bad to your ears too. And you're going to do that by practicing it out loud and saying both the was forms and the were forms together. Saying sentences like, I was at home, he wasn't at home, we were at home. And repeating these, especially in contrast with one another, and you start to build that library of what is acceptable, putting emphasis and importance on this mistake. And it does feel weird if you are an advanced speaker of English and going back to such a simple exercise, but that's what it requires to fix. It's not a failure of your knowledge and it's not a failure of your practice. It's a failure of your focus. You have focused on so much in English with learning new words, new constructions, and feeling confident. It's time to put the emphasis back on this basic lesson if you find yourself making this mistake. But is it worth it? Well, as I said, one reason why you make this mistake is because it doesn't stop communication. So if you are fine with the results of your communication, it might not be a mistake worth fixing. After all, having the wrong form of be is a form of AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English. Now you just sound black or perhaps just cool. It's a question of the style of English you want to present. But if you want to get better, pay attention and see if you're making this mistake. And if you are you ready to do the work needed to undo it? That's it for this week, guys. I'll be back next week with another session of 5 Minutes of English. If you want to know more about me, you can find everything on my website, which is laurapickens.ru. And with that, guys, I'll see you next week.